It was funny. I caught up with Osher when I got back about a week ago to talk about Dad Pod and stuff. And
I saw a picture of you and Osher at the Australian Podcast Awards.
Yes.
Was Dad Pod up for an award at the Australian Podcast Awards?
We were up for the Best Parenting Podcast. Odd system of announcing winners at the podcast award. I've never been to a podcast awards before.
No, because we don't enter.
Because we don't enter.
Because it costs $200 to enter. And at TOFOP.com, we do not believe that is a good allocation of the limited resources we have.
Exactly. But I felt like, I wanted to go and support the show, and not just, Osher, but, there's a lot of people who work behind the scenes. And so
of course.
I only landed back in the country on Monday, had an hour at home, and then jumped on a flight to Sydney. But it was about 45 minutes into the award ceremony that I was like, this is a mistake. like award shows can be a mistake, most of the time. But, when you're jet lagged and stuff, and our category was done, like we were the third up, and it's like, there is still 27 categories to go or something.
Now, did you consider just storming out? Because I assume you didn't win, right?
We did not win.
Yeah.
We came, but how's this? We came runners up. So they don't just announce the winner. Hey, here's the nominees, here's the winners. They announce the nominees, and then they do a bronze, silver, gold, right?
Hang on. How many nominees are there?
That's the point I'm getting to. In some categories, there was like 5. In some categories, there was 4.
Oh, shut up. No, you can't do that.
What it felt like.
And the loser of this category.
The 2 losers, or the singular loser.
Yeah. In a 4-person category, you cannot be giving out a 3rd, 2nd, and 1st. You might as well say in last place.
Yeah. It was hard. And once I realized that, because we were like the 3rd award up, I'm like, please let us just play. I thought bronze, just give us bronze at least. I didn't think we'd win, but just give us a placing. So I don't even know how the awards are judged. I mean, I don't know if it's like fan voted or if there's like a team of people or whatever, but I do not know what qualifies a podcast expert. And then podcasts are so niche. Like, are you hiring experts in parenting? Were there a bunch of like pediatricians listening to the podcast, or was it just like me? I mean, if someone asked me to judge like a parenting podcast, I wouldn't fucking know which is a good one or a bad one. That's why I'm doing one. I'm trying to work it out.
I imagine there is some sort, and again, I have know nothing about these podcasts, but I imagine there is some sort of industry awards, because I know there is fan voted awards because I hear them talk about it on the Weekly Planet, right?
Yeah.
There is some that are fan voted, but the majority of the industry awards, that is generally the case with most awards, right? Whether it be the ARIAs or the actors or the Logies, they have industry categories where they'll have like a panel of people from the industry who vote on the awards, versus they'll have like popular choice awards, which is just your general, anybody can vote for those awards. I imagine that it's similar with the podcast awards as well. Here's what I will tell you. I have been a person who has voted on things in the past. I have voted, I know, in the actors, and I have voted in the ARIAs. I've been on those like industry panels at various stages in my career. And when I was doing both of those awards, it certainly wasn't, it wasn't like they said, okay, you're a comedian and you host like a panel show, so we're going to get you to vote on comedy and panel shows. No. It was like, you vote on everything that's up for an actor. And I assume the system is meant to be that you go out and then watch like an episode of each of those things. Here's what I can tell you I did not do. That.
Yeah, okay.
You vote for the one that you've heard of, or the people that you like, or the one that you think might be the best based on your limited amount of information, particularly in the categories. There might be some categories where you genuinely have, listened to all 5 podcasts or watched all 5 movies or whatever it might be. But there are some categories that you're like, I'm never going to have, like, I haven't heard of any of these in this category. And the ARIAs, like, I'm not even in the music industry. I just worked at Triple J. And they're like, do you want to, like,
enough.
That'll do, I guess. Well, you get to decide which the best country album was.
I will. I went and saw Armageddon, and now I'm in NASA. It's amazing. They invited me to join NASA. So the only plans I can come up with, though, is just like drilling holes in asteroids and blowing them up.
And like the idea that they then rank them, like that you get to hear what 3rd, 2nd, and 1st is. I mean, that I think they should go a step further. I want to see the Australian Podcasting Awards rank every podcast in that category in order.
What-
So if it's parenting podcast, they literally go through every parenting podcast on
In
iTunes and they rank them in order from last through to first.
Well, what I agree with you, and I think there's no way that people. I'm not casting aspersions on the Australian Podcasting Awards, but I would be surprised if people listen to every second of every podcast, because you got a lot of podcasts to listen to.
That
So
only
this
be
is
like at best, they'd only be listening to an episode of each podcast in the category.
At best. Like, I'm thinking 5 minutes. I reckon if it was my job, I'd go, this guy's voice annoys me. I'm not listening to this anymore.
I mean, imagine if we entered and this was the podcast they listened to, where we spent the first 5 minutes talking about how not legitimate the Australian Podcasting Awards are.
Panel, the Australian Podcasting Awards.
I mean, I don't think it would do well for us. I don't think we would even get a bronze.
This should be the episode we submit.
We send it in.
Brilliant. I love it. Well, I think I agree with everything you said. And I think that that's why it has paid dividends to be at least, I mean, I would like to think that he considers us friends, but at the very least, internet friendly with Reed Parker, because he's done all our podcast artwork. And the one that we use is his Beyond Thunderdome spoof, where it's me and Osh replacing Mel Gibson and Tina Turner. It's great and it's hilarious. And I imagine that if I was sifting through all the nominees, I'm like, well, these guys have got good artwork. So I'm sure that reflects the quality of the show.
In fact, maybe we should have entered all the TOFOP ones based on that. We might have about 8 Australian Podcasting Awards.
But what I realized talking Osh, because when he held a seat for me, I got there quite late. I had a delayed flight. And we were chatting and stuff, and he was talking about all
Can I ask where it was, by the way? Just because I saw
Seymour
the photo
Centre.
of you and Osher there.
At the Seymour Centre.
Now, this...
And sitting next to Osher, by the way, and I know it's a podcasting awards, but it's essentially like a radio industry awards. There's a lot of radio people there. Sitting next to Osh in the front row was like sitting next to Jack Nicholson at the Oscars. Like, if there was cameras, they would have always been cutting to him, because the MC kept making Osher jokes, kept referencing Osher. There was like, he was referenced about 4 or 5 times in the first like half an hour. So I was like,
Can I ask, and this is only based on the photo that I saw.
Yeah.
The Seymour Centre doesn't seem like it has a whole bunch of charm and atmosphere inside. Was that room particularly, like, it looked very conference roomy? It wasn't particularly... or was it just the photo?
It didn't feel awards showy.
No.
I mean, it was weird though, because like Osher and I were sitting there in jeans and t-shirts. Like Dan Illich, who won for, Rational Fear, was wearing like a sloppy, like, unwashed, unironed t-shirt, which was referenced by Lewis on stage. Like, but then there was women in like who busted out their best dresses. So it was a very strange mix of kind of, it was an awards show, but then there were some dudes in tracksuit pants.
Was Abby Chatfield there?
Don't think so. I didn't stay long enough to know. I literally left after 45 minutes because I was so tired.
Okay. Again, should have stormed out.
That would have been, well, yeah. I mean, does that bode well for like a parenting podcast where, we're trying to make dads better dads, that like the slightest hint of kind of some resistance that I just storm at, I can't control my emotions?
I mean, yeah, okay, that's a good point. But the fact that you left early, that's probably a good dad thing. They probably should have given the award to you if the other people who had a parenting podcast were still there late at night, soaking it up. What sort of parents are they?
Yeah,
they should be at home with their children. You were the responsible one who went home early.
Having said that, I did arrive home, see my daughter for about an hour, and then leave again because Daddy has to go to an awards ceremony. What kind of parenting is that?
Okay.
But talking to Osh that night, he was sort of talking about the show and everything he'd been doing for it, and then I was like, oh, I realize who I am. I'm the Wil in this arrangement. Like, Osh is the one who puts in all the groundwork. He preps the show. He sort of talks to him about this, what we're going to talk about. And then I just come on and say funny things, or attempt to say funny things. I'm like, I like this role.
It's fun to be the Wil. I recommend it.
It was, it's, what is great about it is it's all the plaudits and none of the responsibility. If it goes well, great. If it doesn't, well, no one really cares because it's not like it's your passion project.
Yeah, but I mean, this is, again, in this scenario, you have been both. you've been both the Wil and the Charlie, because
Yes.
you've gone to this thing in your capacity as the Wil of
Yeah.
Osher in your relationship.
Yeah.
But then you've brought this content to this podcast as the Charlie.
As the Osher.
And I've got to be the Wil. Oh, you're the Osher. Yeah, you're right. I'm Charlie. Hang on, I'm Charlie and you're Osher.
To see the full video, join our Patreon.
Patreon.com/TOFOP.